Good morning. My name is Richard Wexler, and I want to invite you to our podcast, Caring in America, episode 20. And a little recap, like I always do. Who am I? Why are we doing this? So 18 years ago, I'm minding my own business in the software industry. Married later, two small kids, one 11, one 7. My wife has a business out of the home. We start getting phone calls in the summer of '05, which turn into 4 phone calls, each one of our parents. We then start this unbelievable journey of caring for all 4 parents for 14 years. Obviously changed our lives, led to the start of our company, Points of Life, led to educating folks all over the country about this crazy subject called care. And at the end of last year, I got a crazy idea. How do I reach more people? And that's why we started the podcast. So what we're going to do today, we have a guest. We're going to talk about a story, possibly more than one. I want to go ahead and start introducing that guest. Her name is Cindy Koch. She has a master's degree from the University of Denver in organization management and leadership. And she wrote her thesis on aging in Colorado. Obviously, a very needed subject. And with that, Cindy has been in the elder care industry for at least 10 years. I know that she owned a non-medical home care company as well. And she is currently the founder and owner of Aging at 5280 in Denver. And her goal is really to help seniors and their families navigate the healthcare system and aging. Cindy, are you there?
I am, Richard. Thank you.
Good morning. So how is the weather in Denver today?
It's a perfect day in Colorado. It's 79 degrees. It's a beautiful fall day, finally. We've been in the 90s, so it's a lovely day today. Going out golfing later.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. So, backing up before we get to the story, interesting, your thesis on aging in Colorado. Did you always want to get involved in the elder care industry? Kind of tell me what happened.
No, I never even knew there was an elder care industry. No, I did my thesis from the lens of being a mediator. I have a mediator certificate and how families fall apart when you don't talk about what's going to happen next for your aging loved one. And so I did it from that perspective and I was doing it from a mediation lens. And really, I kind of stumbled on to all this other things happening in this space because Colorado is the third largest aging population in the country, which people do
Uh,
not know that.
I didn't know that.
Um, yeah, I do seminars, and when I have a group of about 30 people, I ask them where they're all from, and about 75% are from different states, and I ask them why do they come out here, and the reason why is their kids come out here to university, and they stay and have babies, so they're all coming out here to live out here to be closer to the grandchildren. People don't know we're the third largest aging population.
So, what took you from this thesis mediation to eventually owning a non medical home care agency? Kind of give me that background.
So in 2012, I graduated, and my husband was nominated to do a teacher's exchange in Australia. So we
Oh,
went and we
wow.
exchanged homes and jobs. And so I had to come back. And when I came back, I had to reinvent myself again. I do that quite a bit in my career. So I decided that I would look deeper into my thesis about really what does it mean to age in Colorado. And a girlfriend from DU had started a non medical And so she had a franchise to sell here in Denver. So I bought that with a partner. And we started, going down this road, understanding what it means to age. And it was, I'm not from healthcare. I came from hospitality. So it kind of really translates pretty well, though, because, you're really caring for someone in hospitality, you're caring for someone in healthcare. Where we do such a poor job in healthcare is we don't connect the dots, right? In healthcare, in hospitality, we've learned how to connect the dots. In healthcare, aging services, the dots are not connected. And that is where we get people to be so overwhelmed and not understanding what to do. So I'm a connector. So I come in and connect the dots for people.
So, talk about that a little bit more about connecting the dots. Exactly what are you talking about?
So I'm really a change agent mostly in my career. I go into industries and help change them. I came into healthcare and I'm like, I'm going to change this industry. Medicare has to service, their clients better. I go to one doctor's appointment with my first client. The doctor doesn't even look at me, doesn't even acknowledge I'm there as the advocate. Talks to my 80-year-old, client who really can't hear and just talks over them. And I'm like, okay, our doctors are not our connectors. Our doctors are our linear people who are there to do one thing. They're not there to help bring in all the resources to support you as you age. So that was a real eye opener. And I'm like, okay, this is a one family at a time type of business. And like you said, you wanted to reach more people. And I'm sure you've realized that, it's one day at a time, one step at a time, one person at a time. So really trying to bring the resources all into one place has really been our goal in the last 10 years in
Very,
Colorado.
very cool. And I'm going to take what you said and people that have heard me talk over the years, and I may shock a few with what I'm about to say. But in the medical industry, what I've found, most doctors, most nurses, most people that work in hospitals really don't understand how they connect those dots. They really don't understand what an 80-year-old, what a 90-year-old, what a ailing 75-year-old may be going through when I talk about what's next. So maybe there's a care in the doctor's office, maybe there's a hospitalization, maybe there's skilled nursing after that. But where I really see the ball dropping, and I'm hoping a lot of those folks are listening to these episodes and start understanding they have to broaden their perspective. And it'll kind of lead us into what you're doing now and understand what those next steps are for a patient after surgery, after the diagnosis of an illness, after a stroke, after a fall, etc. Because with 80 million baby boomers moving north, that's a huge issue. So, what took you to aging at 5280?
So in my non-medical, we did the placement piece also, and I really enjoyed finding the next steps for people. So I sold the non-medical side, and then just I sold the whole franchise, and then I started aging at 5280 about 5 years ago. So 5280 is a mile high, and that's what we're called, is the Mile High City. So that's what the name references. So I really like the whole piece of helping people navigate. And I'll tell you, Richard, I think everyone at 65 should be assigned a navigator. When you sign up for Medicare, you should have a meeting with a navigator about how to create a roadmap for aging. And even just that one step with a 65-year-old, letting them know what to expect as we age. Because in this society, we plan for retirement, but not for aging. And so financial planners don't talk to you about it. No one's really talking to you about this aging piece. And if we had a navigator meet with everyone who gets on Medicare just for 1 hour one-on-one to say, here's where you're going to be looking at, and these are the steps you'll be going through as you age. That at least it would be in the back of their mind instead of being hit by these crises. Mom's fallen, she is at rehab. We don't even know which rehab to go to. Her insurance is Kaiser in Colorado. They're only contracted for 3 rehabs, so very limited choices. People don't understand that whole piece. So I really, so since back to your question, so I really like this piece of navigation, and that's what we do with our company and with so many colleagues here in Colorado.
I love that. And you must have been on the road with me because you're kind of stealing the same thought process that I've talked with people about for years. And I love that idea of having a navigator. I proposed this idea of going to this class called Elder Ed at 65 because, as you just said, and we'll move on to your story in a minute, most people have no idea what they're looking at as a little phrase that I use all the time, stuff happens as they get older. And as that stuff happens, what happens to them? What happens with their families? So you had mentioned to me a story about a favorite client of yours. Could you start talking about that? Do you mind?
Sure. So I work with a social worker from a hospital system very closely in my business. And she goes out when home health is ordered and she goes and kind of evaluates the situation for the families. And this one particular client didn't have any family. She had two brothers that lived out of country. And so she said, Cindy, I don't know if she'll answer the door when you get over there because she's got signs of dementia. And so my social worker and I worked really strategically to go over there together to chat with her because her friends were really concerned about her driving and about, living on her own. And so I worked with this client for I worked with her for a total of 4 years until she passed, but it took about 2 years to convince her to move into a community. And we had to do that during COVID, but it took a year to convince her not to drive any longer. All the things that go along with dementia when you don't have a support system. So during this whole journey with her, we had to pull in different support pieces. And on my team, I've got a dementia specialist, I have a Medicaid specialist, I have a real estate specialist, and I have a social worker. So all of those team members came into play for this client because she didn't have any family, but it just made me really realize how important it is to have a aging support system around you. And what that means is you make sure you have a good primary doctor, make sure if you need specialists, you know what specialist you want to work with. One of the big problems, Richard, right now is so many doctors are retiring and people will get into a good system with, the healthcare around them, and then they retire and then they stop going to the doctor because they don't know how to get a new doctor. So with my client, that's exactly what happened is that her primary retired. And so she never really went back to the doctor until I got involved. So she hadn't seen a doctor for like 2 years after the home health had come in. So it really threw her for a loop because she didn't understand how to do it because of her dementia. So I got her set up with a primary, a neurologist. We finally did move her with her dog, Buddy. And it was devastating for me that I had to take away her dog because she couldn't handle him anymore.
Wow.
But what I did do is replace that dog with a robotic dog. And it really helped her go through the transition, the first few days when she's realizing that, he's gone. But the robotic dogs really help with dementia clients and the cats. So yeah, then she moved into memory care. And during this whole process, I had to use my real estate agent to sell her house, downsize her home, do an estate sale. And the unfortunate thing, Richard, is I still get her mail and she still has $500,000 in the bank and no one to take care of it.
Wow.
So, I mean, I can't do anything because I'm not the power of attorney. So, you wonder how many people have got this kind of money in the bank because of their cognitive issues and no family.
No, this is amazing. I mean, you've hit so many different issues from aging, dementia, living on her own, the car, downsizing, selling, moving to a community, pets. I mean, you've probably talked about this for years. I have. There is a lot of pieces that go in, excuse me, as you age. And it can be very challenging for an individual. We're telling someone, hopefully they have their cognitive ability, can understand the changes that need to be made. Maybe that individual isn't safe at home and it's better to possibly move them. Or that individual, like in your situation, we're looking at dementia and all the issues that caused. My guess is, in all the time you've been doing this, you've probably seen both. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that correct?
Oh yes, we've seen. Yeah, we've like we always say, you can't make this one up. I mean, we've seen every disease, every situation, but I not every. I mean, every day is a new situation because each person is different. Everyone has their own. Our logo is a fingerprint, and the fingerprint is, each person is an individual and has a different story, their own story, different from everybody else.
So let me ask you a question. As you're working with people and potentially moving them, are the adult children normally involved? Are you working just with the aging individual themselves? What do you normally see?
Oh, I pull everybody in. I can't tell you how many families I brought back together because of an aging parent. They may have not have spoken to their daughter for 20 years, and I make that call and say, "Look, your mom is in the hospital, and she can't go back home, and I need someone to be her power of attorney." And I'll bring the whole family back together because this is a family, issue, and we all need to be there. And there's always outliers in families, and I always try to bring them back in because this is a time of life where you can bring the family back together. And that's what I wrote about in my thesis, and about the fact that, through me, through collaboration and through understanding, we can come back together as a family and support our aging parents. Because there's nothing worse than having your parent die and you haven't been connected to them. Very fortunate that I was able to take care of my mom for 5 years, and that during that time, and now that she's passed, I'm very grateful I had that time together with her and be able to take care of her, even though during the time it was stressful, and she called me sassy sweet, and I was kind of mean to her at times, but the memory is very ingrained in me, and so grateful for that. So I try to do that for families, as I work with them, is to bring everyone together and make sure that everyone, it's the loving, the ones who need care, it's their choice. And I always say it's their journey. We're not making the choice for them. We're just there to support them. And one of the biggest things I do with families is, look, daughter, you can't make choices for your parents, because that's when, if a daughter or son are making too many choices, then the other siblings will get mad. And, so I always make it very obvious that it's the journey of the one who needs care. And we are going to keep their autonomy and their agency with them.
No, I love that. And again, I think you're stealing my material from years past. And I love what you're talking about. And I have said forever that most families are dysfunctional to some degree, and there may not be communication between a parent, their child, different siblings, and what you're doing trying to bring that family back together, I think is awesome, because as people are listening to this and people are already on this journey with a loved one, or they potentially see this journey coming, it is really challenging. And part of it is what I said a few minutes ago, just all the pieces and all the parts that go into this. And then I would agree with what you said as well. I mean, actually taking care of a parent or parents is extremely challenging from many different vantage points. But when you look back on it, you're happy, you're satisfied that you were involved in everything a parent did for you when you were young or an adolescent, whatever it may be, maybe even as you moved into your 20s, 30s before you kind of settled down. It's a way to give back. So,
It is.
people, go ahead. People share these stories. I mean, it's wonderful. Go ahead.
Yeah, and exactly, Richard. It's a way to give back. And I think when you're in the throes of it is so challenging. And that's why what we do is our service is a free service because we get a referral fee from the communities. But we also help, we give them resources. We meet with them, if they're not even ready to move now for a year, I'll come in and sit down with the family and say, look, this is what we need to have. We need the bars in the shower. We need these rugs off the floor. We need to make sure that they've got adequate food and nutritional food. And, if they need Ensure for more protein, the Ensure drinks, I'll come in like, even if they're not going to move for years, I'd rather go in now to let them know, okay, these are the things you do to stay in the home, and then when you're ready to move, we've gone on some tours so you understand, so they're not thinking that they're going to a nursing home that's stinky, like the grandparents. I mean, that is the biggest one of the biggest barriers, right? Is everyone thinks they're going to nursing homes. Well, the industry has totally changed. It's, assisted living can do much higher level of care now. And so nursing, and we call them skilled nursing, skilled care, but nursing home is still a language that is out there. And that's what all of our, greatest generation and silent generation understand. So I really try to demyth that and take them for tours and just show them this is where you could move to when the time is when you need it. And we go to lunch and just check out the community. It just eases people's minds. And I say to people, look, knowledge is power. And having options and knowing your options is so peaceful for a good aging experience.
And I love that. And as you talked about a navigator at 65. Maybe this individual doesn't need care for 20 or 30 more years. But one of the biggest things that I talk about, and you're mentioning as well, that knowledge. Okay, let's show you what's out there. They're not nursing homes anymore. Yeah, this is skilled nursing. This is why you would be there. This is an assisted living. Look how beautiful they are. These are memory care communities. If such and such happens to you or a loved one, that might be the best place. But just having this knowledge and then understanding as stuff happens with you, what's out there. I think that's fantastic information. One thing I want to talk about too, I know you're a member of the Placement and Referral Alliance. Can you talk about that a little more? What it is, what it does?
So I came from hospitality, and in hospitality there's an association for everything. I was a managing director of the Hotel Association here in Colorado. So I came into this space healthcare and there was no associations. And so like forever I was like wanting to start a non-medical healthcare association. We do have one at a state level, but nothing at a local level. So National Placement and Referral Alliance was started in Arizona by Chuck Bongiovanni and another gentleman, and they came to Colorado, did an information session, and talked about that they wanted to have best practices, code of ethics, a way of getting legislation through to protect older adults. And I'm like, sign me up, I want to do that. So I became the first president here at the Colorado Placement and Referral Alliance. And really what it is, it's a trade association for placement agents and for communities to come together to to create understanding about what we do and to promote this industry to the older adult in a collaborative method, and really to work as in with best practices and code of ethics, because this industry is very low barrier to get into. So a lot of people think they can just hang a shingle and do the work, and there's just so much more into this industry than just you know moving someone into a community, as I've spoken about. It's a journey. It's a very long journey to make sure they're getting the right support as they age.
And I really thank you for that. I mean, that's very true, and it really is a journey. And I want people to know, yes, there's home care all over the country. There are placement folks like Cindy all over the country. As I've talked about in previous episodes, most people don't understand how placement works, don't understand how what it costs, and the fact that it doesn't cost them anything. But what I use this word on every episode, this four-letter horrible word called plan. But again, that idea of having an advocate at 65, planning, really understanding, talking to your family, understanding what's out there and what steps may be needed based on the stuff that happens to an individual, and then having the different types of professionals like Cindy who obviously really care and understand this journey as people are aging. So this has been wonderful. I love what you're doing. Go ahead.
Can I just say one more thing? So
Sure.
another thing too that we've done in Colorado is we got legislation passed against predatory business practices. A lot of these online companies will you'll get on there in a panic and you'll just be searching for assisted living because your mom can't go home. A lot of these online placement agents will put you into a 2 to 3 year contract with them, and you don't even understand that you're in a contract. And so we have passed in Colorado the family choice law, which means that you can work with the agent of your choice, and you can understand who's representing you in this process. And again, this just kind of goes back to the fact this is a very young industry. People kind of hopped into this industry, saw there was some money in this industry, and kind of created some not really fair business practices. So we're just trying to level the playing field to make it understandable and fair and equitable to families.
That's excellent information. And we talk about, I'm not saying this is a scam, but we talk about people taking advantage of folks that are older, especially maybe there isn't family around them. So having something like that is advantageous. I would hope other states would pass similar laws, because I've been saying, you just said this, and I've been saying forever. I came out of the software industry, so you look at computers going back to the 1970s. We really are in the infancy of elder care, and we need
Yes.
to get the right people involved. And I'm glad Cindy's one of them, the right people involved to really understand this journey and really understand what the aging individual goes through and what their family goes through. And I've been saying for a while, we need to expedite this with over 100 million people out there that are currently over 50, and the almost 80 million baby boomers that are moving north. So, no, I love this, Cindy. Love what you're doing. Love your story. Love how you're helping people. I want others in the audience to understand this as well. Before I get ready to wrap up, is there a website, a phone number you want to put out there so people can get in touch with you?
Sure. My website is www.agingat5280.com. And my phone number is 720-390-1383. And if they want to find another agent in another state, it's National Placement and Referral Alliance, npra.org. And they can go there and find someone who's doing this in their state or whatever state they need some help in.
Perfect. That is wonderful information. So, folks, if you work in this industry and want to share your expertise, reach out to me. I'm about ready to give you an email. if there's someone out there with a story, whether it's a personal story, working with a client, working with a patient, that you'd like to share to our audience, please reach out to me. Do you have a pen, folks? That email is eldered2023@gmail.com. ELDERED2023@gmail.com. And I want to thank Cindy again. And as I sign off each time, folks, until we talk again, have yourself an awesome day.